You're a burden, Dad. Get out. Oh, shouted my greedy daughter, waving a winning lottery ticket worth 30 million. Her husband laughed as he kicked me out of the house I had bought with my own money. I just smiled. Daughter, are you sure you read the name on that ticket? When they looked closer, they started screaming and tearing their hair out. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The bills hit the coffee table like accusations. Teresa's hand slammed down beside them, sending the electric bills sliding toward my worn armchair. Look at this mess. Her voice cut through the afternoon silence. 300 for electricity, 250 for gas, and that's not even counting groceries. Neil shifted on the couch without looking away from the television. Some talk show droned in the background, audience laughter punctuating our family drama. The irony wasn't lost on me. Your pathetic 1,200 isn't even enough for groceries. Teresa spun toward me, her face flushed with anger. We're drowning here, Dad, and you just sit there like everything's fine. I folded my hands in my lap, watching her pace between the kitchen entrance and the coffee table. 3 years of this. 3 years since I'd given them everything. The pension covers what it covers, I said quietly. Maybe one of you could finally find a job. The words hung in the air like smoke. Neil's head snapped toward me, his eyes narrowing. The talk show host's voice filled the sudden silence. Are you saying I'm a failure? Neil's voice carried that dangerous edge I'd learned to recognize. He pushed himself up on the couch, no longer lounging. I've been looking for work. The market's terrible for sales managers for 2 years. The question slipped out before I could stop it. Teresa laughed sharp and bitter. Right, Neil's the problem. Not the fact that your social security is barely enough to keep the lights on. She gestured at the scattered bills. We need real money, not pocket change from some factory pension. The coffee table between us might as well have been a canyon. These bills, these numbers, they represented more than monthly expenses. They were evidence of broken promises, of sacrifices that had gone unacknowledged. I worked 37 years at that factory, I said, my voice steady despite the anger building in my chest. That pension supported your mother and me just fine. Well, Mom's not here anymore, is she? Teresa's words hit like a slap. And your little pension doesn't stretch to cover 3 people. Neil stood up now, his bulk casting a shadow across the coffee table. Maybe you should have thought about that before moving in with us. His tone suggested I'd forced my way into their home, rather than been invited. The television laugh track seemed to mock us all. I seemed to remember being asked to move in. I said carefully after I sold my house and helped with your down payment. That was different. Teresa waved her hand dismissively. That was 3 years ago. Things change. 3 years, had it really been that long since I'd handed over the check for $150,000? Since Teresa had hugged me and promised I'd always have a home with them. Things do change, I agreed, but I haven't. Neil stepped closer to my chair. Look, old man, we're grateful for what you did back then. But that doesn't mean we owe you free room and board forever. The words stung more than they should have. Free room and board, as if my pension, my grocery contributions, my help with utilities meant nothing. I'm not asking for free anything. I said, I pay my share, your share. Teresa's voice climbed higher. Your share would be splitting everything 3 ways. Your share would be 800 rent, not the nothing you pay now. The math was deliberately cruel. $800 would leave me with 400 from my pension. 400 to cover food, clothing, medical expenses, everything else an old man needed to survive. So, what are you suggesting? I asked. Teresa and Neil exchanged a look. In that glance, I saw something that chilled me more than the November cold seeping through the windows. They'd discussed this before. This wasn't a spontaneous argument born of financial stress. This was planned. We're suggesting, Neil said slowly, that you figure out how to contribute more or figure out somewhere else to live. The television audience erupted in applause. Someone had just won something, received something wonderful and unexpected. The contrast felt deliberately cruel. I looked at my daughter, searching her face for any trace of the little girl who used to climb into my lap when thunderstorms scared her. The woman staring back at me was a stranger. I see, I said, but I didn't see, not yet. I wouldn't see clearly for another few minutes, when Teresa would thrust 5 crumpled dollars into my hand and send me out into the cold. I wouldn't understand the full scope of their ingratitude until I walked through the streets of Elgin, remembering every sacrifice I'd made for them. Right now, I just felt tired and foolish for believing that family meant something more than a monthly expense report. Well, Teresa demanded, what's it going to be? The question hung between us like a sword. Outside, clouds gathered for what looked like the season's first real cold snap. Inside, something equally bitter was settling over our small living room. The silence stretched like a held breath. Teresa stood over me, hands on her hips, waiting for an answer I didn't have. Neil remained by the couch, arms crossed, wearing the expression of a man who'd already won. Finally, Teresa made a sound of disgust. Fine, just fine. Just fine. She stalked toward the kitchen, then spun back around. But you're not sitting around here all day feeling sorry for yourself. She disappeared for a moment, and I heard the familiar sound of her purse being rifled through. Coins clattered, paper rustled. When she returned, she had a crumpled $5 bill in her fist. Here. She thrust the money toward me like it burned her fingers. Take these $5 and buy a lottery ticket. At least then you'll be some use to this family. The bill hung between us, wrinkled and worn. $5. The price of my usefulness, apparently. Go on, she said, when I didn't immediately take it. Maybe you'll get lucky and solve all our problems. Neil chuckled from his position by the couch. Yeah, because that's exactly how lottery tickets work. But Teresa shot him a look that silenced his sarcasm. This wasn't about the lottery ticket, and we all knew it. This was about sending me away, getting me out of the house, so they could discuss whatever they had been planning. I reached out and took the $5. The paper felt soft from handling, worn thin by countless transactions. Someone else had earned this money. Spent it, received it as change. Now it was mine. A gift wrapped in humiliation. Thank you, I said. Teresa blinked as if she'd expected an argument. Well, good. She stepped back, suddenly uncertain. The convenience store on Mellon has those scratch-off tickets. Get something decent, not those dollar ones. I folded the bill carefully and slipped it into my shirt pocket. I'll do that. Standing up from my chair took more effort than it should have. My knees protested, stiff from sitting through the argument. How long had we been at this? An hour, 2. The afternoon light coming through the windows had shifted, grown thinner. Where are you going? Neil asked, as I moved toward the front closet to buy a lottery ticket. I pulled my coat from its hanger. The fabric felt heavier than usual. Or maybe I felt lighter, hollowed out. Isn't that what was requested? Teresa watched me button the coat. You don't have to make it sound like we're sending you to prison. Of course not. I wound my scarf around my neck, taking my time with each loop. It's a beautiful day for a walk. Through the window, I could see the November sky pressing down like a gray blanket. Beautiful wasn't the word anyone would use, but then again, truth seemed to be in short supply in this house. Dad, Teresa's voice carried a note I couldn't quite identify. Regret, doubt. We're not. This isn't personal. I paused with my hand on the doorknob. No, I'm sure it's not. It's just practical. Neil added from the living room, we all have to face reality. Reality. Yes, I was beginning to see reality very clearly. The reality of what my $150,000 had bought me. The reality of what family meant when money got tight. I understand, I said, and I did, more than they knew. I opened the front door, and November air rushed in to greet me. It carried the smell of dead leaves and coming snow, of seasons changing whether we were ready or not. Get the $5 tickets, Teresa called after me. Those have better odds, better odds. I almost smiled at that. After today, I was beginning to think I understood odds better than I ever had before. I'll remember that, I said. The door closed behind me with a soft click, cutting off the warmth and the voices in the television that had provided its soundtrack to my humiliation. The porch steps creaked under my feet, and then I was on the sidewalk, breathing free air for the first time in hours. $5 in my pocket. $5 to buy hope, to make myself useful, to solve all our problems. They had no idea how right they might be about that. But first I needed to walk. I needed to think. I needed to remember exactly how I'd ended up standing on this sidewalk with $5 in my pocket and nowhere to call home. The convenience store on Mellon was a 20-minute walk. I had time to remember everything. Time to add up every sacrifice, every broken promise, every kindness that had gone unacknowledged. Time to decide what to do about it. The cold hit my face like a wake-up call. November in Illinois didn't mess around, and today felt like winter's warning shot. I pulled my coat tighter and started walking, leaving Teresa's house behind me. My feet found their rhythm on the sidewalk, automatically. Left, right, the same pace I'd walked to the Ford plant every morning for 37 years. The same measured steps that had carried me through this neighborhood countless times since moving in with my daughter. Moving in, what a phrase, as if I'd had a choice. The houses on Teresa's street looked warm and inviting, yellow light spilling from windows as families settled into their Friday evening routines. Through one window, I glimpsed a father helping a young boy with homework at a kitchen table. Through another, a mother was setting plates for dinner, while her teenage daughter talked on the phone. Normal families, families that probably didn't calculate the exact dollar value of their elderly relatives. I turned onto Mellon Street, walking past the elementary school where Teresa had once attended. The playground equipment looked newer now, brighter colors, safer designs. Everything improved except family loyalty. Apparently, the $5 bill crinkled in my pocket as I walked. $5 for hope, $5 for usefulness. The irony wasn't lost on me that this same amount of money had once meant something entirely different to me. When Teresa was 8 and wanted ice cream from the truck, $5 had been a grand gesture. When she was 16 and needed gas money, $5 had been freedom itself. Now it was charity. Worse than charity, it was a dismissal. My breath came out in small clouds as the temperature dropped. The weather matched my mood, gray and getting colder. But the walking felt good. It felt like progress, even if I wasn't sure where I was progressing to. 3 blocks from Teresa's house, I passed the corner where old Mr. Henderson used to live. He'd been gone 2 years now. His house sold to a young couple with twin babies. Henderson had lived alone after his wife died, just like I lived alone now, despite being surrounded by family. The memory hit me without warning. 3 years ago, standing in the kitchen of my own house on Elm Street, the house I'd bought in 1983, where I'd raised Teresa, where Margaret and I had planned to grow old together. The house that had been paid off for 15 years when the cancer took Margaret. "Dad, you can't live in that big house all by yourself," Teresa had said. Her voice full of concern I'd believed was genuine. "It's not safe. What if you fall? What if something happens?" Neil had nodded along, playing the caring son-in-law. "We've got that extra bedroom. You'd be doing us a favor, really. Help with the mortgage." Help with the mortgage. Even then, it had been about money. "The house is worth at least 180. The realtor had told me, maybe more in this market. Location's perfect. Everything's been maintained.